Council meeting, the meeting is now called to order, and I'd like to ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Would you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence after? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the June 11th, 2024 meeting and the agenda of the June 25th, 2024 meeting in accordance with state law, City Council and Housing Authority policy. We have one presentation today. It's for the Edible Food Recovery Program, and I'd like to invite Interim Director of Public Works, David Richards, to share about this with us.
Hello, and I would actually like to introduce someone from Solana Center who's here to talk about their role. Oh, there you are. I was like, where'd she go? So this is Malika Sen, the Director of Environmental Solutions for Solana Center. And the Solana Center has been contracted with the city since 2022 to assist with the implementation of SB 1383 and compliance with that. So she's here to provide a brief update about the program. And with that, I'll kick it off.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Malika Sen, and I'm the Director of Environmental Solutions at the Solana Center. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you today about SB 1383 and edible food recovery. Let me start off by introducing the Solana Center. We're a 40-year-old nonprofit organization, and we primarily work in zero waste, water conservation, and soil health with residents, businesses, and cities. And we've been working specifically with SB 1383 in the past several years. We are contracted with about 14 of the jurisdictions, 80% of the jurisdictions in the county of San Diego. We've been working with the city of Cajon as well since 2022. And have done a variety of services, including education and outreach to your businesses, inspections of businesses and food recovery organizations. We've done a couple of unique tasks called Tier ID, which I'll get into in a little bit, and also capacity planning. So let's start off with talking about SB 1383. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this regulation, so I'll give you a little bit of an update. So SB 1383 is a landmark regulation that has been touted to be the biggest in about 30 years for environmental work. It's got one main purpose, which is sending less organics to the landfill. So organics in the landfill basically becomes a really potent greenhouse gas called methane. Methane's 84 times more powerful than carbon dioxide, and it causes what the left picture is. It causes climate change. And the whole purpose of this regulation is to not send organics to the landfill to prevent greenhouse gases from forming. There are two main components, targets that need to be achieved by 2025, and that's a 75% reduction in landfill organics and a 20% increase in surplus edible food recovery. The reason the law also targeted surplus edible food is because in California, 1 in 5 are food insecure. And in San Diego County, it's actually the number is 1 in 4. So why send wonderful food to the landfill while we could feed people in need? So let's go to the next slide. So who are the businesses who are required to donate? They are termed regulated Tier 1 and Tier 2 businesses. Tier 1 businesses basically are the big producers, the ones you normally think of. Grocery stores, supermarkets, they handle a lot of shelf-stable food. And they needed to start doing donations as of January 1, 2022. So on the right-hand side, you have Tier 2s, and they handle more prepared food. And they are, again, the usual suspects: restaurants, health facilities, hotels, schools, and more. Because they handle prepared foods, there's a lot of food safety requirements that come into play, and therefore they need to be a lot more careful. And therefore, they were given a couple extra years to comply. And they needed to comply as of January 1, 2024, basically this year. So as of this year, all Tier 1 and Tier 2 businesses need to be donating food. But there's a caveat. The law tries to target just the biggest producers. So there are some thresholds. Oh, the text is really small, but you can probably see some numbers next to a couple of the sectors. So restaurants, for example, they have to be at least 5,000 square feet in size or have 250 seats. So not all the sectors have these thresholds, but most of them do. And again, the idea is it's only the big guys. The law is going after the big guys to make sure that they donate. I do want to pause and talk about organics recycling. It's not the focus of today, but it's a key thing to mention. Organics recycling does not have any caveats. So businesses of all sizes have to comply. And so do residents. So residents and businesses have to start doing organics recycling as of January 1, 2022. So it's been a couple years. And organics is food, food soil paper, yard waste, and natural fibers. Okay, so now let's look at who in the city of El Cajon needs to comply. So this exercise is called tier identification. And it's the exercise of looking through all the city's businesses and identifying those that meet the thresholds. This was done for the city in 2022 and was done again in 2024. They are about 88 businesses and 8 food recovery organizations. The bar graph below shows you how the businesses are divided up. The biggest contributors to food recovery are the bottom 2, grocery stores and supermarkets. And then you can see your next big contributor is wholesalers and restaurants. I do want to talk briefly about wholesalers. Now, wholesalers is one of the sectors that does not have a threshold. So even if you're a small mom and pop wholesaler, say making food for a market, you are caught up in this regulation. However, Calorie Cycle have given us the authority that as inspectors, if we go and inspect a business and find out they don't have food to donate, we can put them on a watch list, and then they get a pass, basically, until the next time we go there. If circumstances have changed and they have food to donate, only then do they need to go back and implement a program. So once we have the list of these regulated businesses, we've performed an exercise called the Food Recovery Capacity Planning. This is mandated by the law. The first time this was done was in 2022. We've done it again this year in 2024, and the next time it's due is 2029. This time round, the planning cycle was 10 years. So basically, what you needed to do, or what we did for the city, was we looked at all the regulated businesses you have, and we determined, based on various models, what is the potential for food recovery. That's what the first row is, right? So all your businesses, their potential for food donation was 657.6 tons. And then the next row is basically looking at what the city's capacity is for recovering this donated food. So you have a really robust network of food recovery organizations in the county, one of the best, and you have the capacity of recovering around 1968 tons. So in summary, you have nearly 1,300 tons of excess capacity. This is needed by the region because you have a lot of cities in San Diego that are actually operating at a deficit. So that means they don't have food recovery set up, or they don't have robust agencies set up to recover the food. And as a result, the food needs to be picked up by agencies in other cities. So El Cajon has flying colors, you contribute to the region with a excess capacity of 1,300. And just this morning, we found out that San Diego, the region as a whole, has sufficient capacity, which actually, believe me, is a big sigh of relief, because otherwise it would have mandated a lot of extra work to create excess recovery. Okay? And now I'm going to jump to insights from the field. And what better organization to focus on than the East County Transitional Living? I'm seeing some nods. I'm so glad you're familiar with this wonderful organization. They work with about 23 partners in the city, from grocery stores to hospitals, schools, restaurants, and more. We had the pleasure of visiting them. They are unique in that they actually have kitchen and dining facilities. Many recovery organizations just do distribution, but they do have dining and kitchen. And they feed about 300 people 3 meals a day. It's truly marvelous. They pick up 7 days a week. So Chef Bobby and his team are doing a fantastic job. I'd like to show briefly what the pickup process looks like. And it is thanks to wonderful volunteers in the city who are the lifeblood behind food recovery that make this happen. So they oftentimes are taking their personal vehicles and visiting the businesses, picking up the food, and then they drive it back to the organization, the food recovery organization, and deliver it. And they are desperately needed, and it's always one of the number one asks from the food recovery agencies is, please help us get more volunteers. So I'm putting it out there for anybody who'd like to volunteer. And this is my last slide. I just wanted to leave you with a quick picture of all the wonderful food that is being picked up. It ranges from fresh produce on the right to milk, eggs, dairy, and more. These pictures are all from your city. And I just want to maybe finish up with saying that city of El Cajon is so lucky, because you're one of the few cities where the food that is being picked up by your generators is actually staying right here in the community and helping your community members. The city of El Cajon is off to an excellent start with SB 1383's Edible Food Recovery Program, and it was my pleasure to give you a brief update. I will start for questions.
Thanks very much. Let me see if there's any questions for you. Michelle?
Thank you very much. It was a great presentation, a lot of information. So there are a lot of residents in El Cajon who are food insecure. Yeah. And every now and then on social media pages, I see someone looking, hey, I need some food for my kids. I'm in a motel, or, I don't get paid till next Friday, and we don't have any milk. We don't have any cereal. We don't have anything to eat. Where can I refer those people to get some of this recovered food?
There are quite a few organizations. The Salvation Army is one that comes to mind, where they can go there and they do distribution every week. Okay. And there are several others. The two biggest are the Salvation Army and East County. So there's actually a list of organizations that operate in the city on the city's website.
On our website?
On your website, yeah. So I'll work with Monica, and she'll maybe send you the link to where those organizations are. Yeah.
I'll get with Monica.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve? Or Phil, did you have anything, Steve? Yeah.
Is this about food recovery from institutions to help those who are insecure with food and to distribute that? Or is it the recycling of food away from landfills into biodigesters or something?
Yeah.
Which?
I know. Great question. And I went through the slides too quickly. This is about doing both, right? So it starts with, if you're a big institution and you have food for recovery, then absolutely it should be first recovered. And then once you're done with recovery, and you will always have excess food that maybe is not safe anymore, or maybe it's trimmings, waste, stuff that can't be rescued for food. Now that has to be picked up and sent, like you said, to the EDCO as your hauler, so it would be sent to their anaerobic digestion facility. So between food recovery and picking up the organics, you want to make sure that you're sending nothing to the landfill.
Sounds good. So EDCO is our hauler of all kinds of waste, including organic waste.
Yes.
We don't know from the state yet if their trash trucks, which are powered by renewable natural gas from the digesters,
Correct.
we don't know if they're going to get an exemption from having to make those trash trucks be electric trash trucks.
Okay.
And if so, then what do we do with all this biodigested natural gas?
Yeah.
I would like to make you aware of something.
Yeah.
The East County Advanced Water Purification Project
Yes.
is being built out in Santee.
Yes.
It has a biodigester,
Oh, also wonderful.
which will fuel
Yeah.
part of the system,
Yeah.
which purifies the water. So if EDCO can't use organic waste and methane anymore, I'd like to make you aware that the AWP project will take that
Will take it.
biodigester to run part of its plant.
Yeah.
So I want to make you aware of that resource as well.
Thank you. And to the best of my knowledge, Council Member, the law actually has provisions that mandate that the city, through its hauler or through other mechanisms, recovered organic waste products. So that's actually part of the law, and there's a target that's set based on your population, and those recovered organic waste products can be renewable natural gas, it can be compost, it can be mulch, and other items. So the law allows for it. So I'm not quite sure if there's a mismatch with the electric vehicles, but you are allowed to use this wonderful renewable natural gas and use it towards meeting your target, your procurement target.
I understand that the natural gas may be produced because it keeps it out of the landfill.
That's
the
right.
question is, where will that natural gas go?
So-
will it go into a trash truck, or will the state say, nope, it has to be electric?
No, it can go to the trash truck. That's absolutely allowed. And EDCO is using it to fuel their fleet. And they right now are using their excess to put it back into the grid.
Yeah.
So it is allowed.
Okay,
It's
great.
allowed for it to be used.
Thank you.
And the city can choose to procure more renewable natural gas from your other facilities as well.
Sounds good. Thank
yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you and all the people in your organization for doing what you do. There's nothing more noble than feeding hungry people.
Thank you.
I do have a couple questions for you. I have a friend I went to high school with that's severely disabled, and he's always running out of food near the end of the month.
Okay.
Is there a place where he can go where he actually can get free meals here in El Cajon? Or does he have to prepare the food himself?
You know what? I need to look into that a little bit more because most of the facilities are doing food distribution, right? So he would have to go prepare it. East County Transitional Living actually is doing actual meals, but I think their meals might be restricted to those who are actually living in their organization. So we can do a little bit more research to figure out, are there others where there is, people can actually go there and eat. So I will work with and update Monica on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So there's two parts to this program. One is the food recovery system.
Correct?
And then the organic part of that doesn't change the food issue at all.
Correct.
So I understand the reasoning for it, but something we never talk about is the cost associated with this. Do you have any idea how much additional burden this is adding to people who are trying to make a living in California? Because we've seen grocery store prices go up 30, 40%. We've seen fast food prices go up 50, 60%.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of this kind of a mandated program is causing those problems, which filter down to everybody who's trying to live.
I hear you, and we are often given that feedback. So the law does have one component, and it's federal tax incentives, and where all the food that is being donated, you can actually claim that as a tax incentive. And this law was updated end of 2015, and actually, believe it or not, nearly every big retail grocery chain takes advantage of it. You get a much bigger, incentive, you get a much bigger deduction by donating food versus claiming the loss.
Yeah.
So that's one component. I think the second thing that I would like to say is the lift is initial. It's in the training of the individuals. Because once the individuals get trained, then it does not really impact organizations that much. We have done lots of work with big organizations and small organizations. And across the board, the lift is really in the initial learning. This food, instead of being sent to the organics bin, needs to be set aside here in the freezer, and once a week, someone's going to come by and pick it up, right? So it's like developing those habits, and once those habits are developed, the lift is nothing. I mean...
Okay, so every time we add regulations, there's money that has to be paid out in compliance costs. I mean, any organization has to be heavily involved in compliance, especially in California.
Yeah.
I don't have heartburn with people donating food, and that they get the write-off their taxes, that's even better. But mandating that people comply in an organics program, I have concerns about that from a governmental perspective, from a cost perspective. But I'm wondering, do you have hard numbers on, say, the average Albertsons? Mm-hmm. How much does it cost Albertsons to be compliant with this program?
I don't really have any hard numbers. A lot of the big stores, like Albertsons, Vons, Ralph's, they actually backhaul all their organics. They put programs in place before these regulations went into effect. And they did it because of their own ESG reporting, for their maybe shareholders, driven by other corporate requirements. But there are smaller grocery stores which have to use this service. They would have had to dispose of that material no matter what. What they get to do now is, instead of paying for hauling fees, they get to donate some amount of it and actually claim a tax deduction. So they actually are reducing their hauling fees. So that's the whole thing, is that if you do this, especially the big guys, they get to save on hauling fees. I don't have any numbers, unfortunately. It's not something they're willing to share.
Is it your understanding, then, that this would be a neutral revenue neutral type proposal?
I don't think I can conclusively say that.
I mean, it seems like the kind of thing that people would like to know.
Yeah. I hear you.
And what about, like, the apartment complex that has to build a new shelter for more organic containers, and then they get fined if the organics are not completely done correctly, and there's some other trash mixed in with our organics?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine. Well, I know for a fact that people who run apartment complexes are screaming about this. They're really angry about this. So I don't want to be confrontational with you, but I
hear you.
I'm worried about what's happening to our society right now. Mm-hmm. People can't afford to live anymore.
Yeah.
And we could just add regulation upon regulation upon regulation, but there's a cost for that. So anyway, I just felt like I needed to say that, and I
hear you.
I don't disagree with what you're doing. I'm glad you're helping people eat. And when I was in college, I actually ran a program where we went and picked up food from restaurants at the end of the night and took them to homeless shelters.
Thank
so
you.
I like the idea, but as I've gotten older, I'm also worried about the cost of things.
I hear you on that.
One more question. Yes.
Oh, I just want to tell you that I worked at a food bank over at my church for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And I remember one time my job was just handing out frozen pizza, and it's not often we got that, so that was a big deal. Usually it was like canned food and boxed food. And this little boy came up with his dad. They were both disabled, and the little boy had these braces on his legs and could barely walk. And he was about 8 years old. It reminded me of my son. And I handed him the pizza, and he goes, "Dad, pizza, pizza." And I had tears streaming down my cheeks, and I had to turn around so these people didn't see that and wipe my eyes. But they really appreciated it. And one guy says, "Well, I don't take anything for free. I want to help. I want to pay you." And we said, "Well, no, we can't take any money." He says, "Well, I want to work." And so the next week he was unloading the truck. So, there are people that are really hurting in this, especially on the valley floor, that this means a lot to them.
It means a lot, and I completely agree. And, a lot of times when we work with businesses, I like to lead with that and let them know that in San Diego, 1 in 4 are food insecure. So with a little bit of effort, we can help feed our neighbors, our community members, kids going to our kids' school versus sending it to the landfill. So.
Yeah, my mom lived in Czechoslovakia in 1938 when Hitler came in, and they had very little food.
Yeah.
And when she was pregnant with my sister, her teeth and her hair were falling out. And by the time they made it to the United States, when I was a kid, I remember, "Whoa, Mom, isn't that stuff gone bad?" No, I can put it into the soup. Nothing went out of our house unless it would look really, really bad.
We love that. I'm going to share just one last thing. The USDA, you have touched on something really important, which is looking at, making sure you're using the food to its ultimate potential. And then there's the date code aspect. So a lot of our items, packaged food items, have date codes on it, right? Used by, sell by, best of used by. Those date codes are actually very confusing to everybody, including businesses. So the USDA have put out new updates that make it very clear that those date codes are not a reflection of safety, they're a reflection of quality. So maybe the pizza is not at 100% quality, maybe it's at 90%, but it's absolutely safe to eat, and there are lots in the community who would benefit from it. So, yes.
Figured I'd jump in here since you're still up. Thank you for the presentation.
My pleasure.
My question is regard to how does the state classify when a piece of food needs to be rescued? Is the state classifying that, or is the business individually saying we're done with this?
Great question. All businesses are required to follow the California Retail Food Code.
Okay.
So it's the same food code that every food-generating business needs to follow for food safety.
Okay.
So no food item can be donated if it's unsafe. So businesses all have to go through training to know what that is,
Okay.
right? So prepared foods are especially hazardous. There are thresholds at which they need to be maintained, known as holding temperature. There are danger zones and all that.
Right.
Now, what gets a little easier is fresh produce and shelf-stable food. So fresh produce, it's exactly, like what he described. You can look at an apple and go, you know what, it has a couple soft spots.
Yeah.
Now, that could absolutely be donated. Maybe you can't sell it, but you can donate it. Or maybe the lettuce is looking a little wilty, or, so there is some visual cues that can be used for fresh produce. If anything has mold, if anything, is growing fungus, absolutely not, right?
Yeah.
So the law makes it very clear. Food safety cannot be compromised.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said that there's a regional quota, but maybe I missed it in the presentation. Is there an individual quota that each company has to abide by? And is that quota going to increase, or how do you determine that?
Oh, I'm going the other way. I'm going to go back to our really quick. It's another great question. Here we go. So these two targets, 75% reduction in landfill organics and 20% surplus edible food, are state targets, and they are for 2025. So each individual city or business does not need to worry about the numbers. How the law is written, it's super prescriptive. It defines in excruciating detail the number of programs and requirements that need to be followed. And all the cities are held responsible for is making sure that programming is followed. And then the results are not the city's responsibility. So as long as you follow having a list of food recovery organizations on your website, identify the generators, go and inspect them to make sure they're donating food, as long as you follow the requirements, you are good.
Okay.
You do not have to worry about either of these numbers.
And neither does the business either.
Neither does the business.
Okay. What I didn't want to happen is we have state inspectors coming into these small mom and pop shops and saying, well, you didn't donate your 50 pounds of food this month, so I'm going to have to take some of your good produce. That's what I didn't want to happen. So, okay.
Great
I appreciate the
Yes.
the help there.
They just need to donate the maximum amount that is safe. So, in other words, they are not allowed to take food that could be donated and just throw it in the trash because it's easier, right? So we are actually doing the inspections for the city, And so when we go to businesses, we make it very clear. If we talk to you, we inspect you, we look at what's going on in your system, and you don't have food to donate, you don't have to donate. And we tell businesses, work on food waste prevention, right? If you're a restaurant, manage your menu better, manage your inventory better. Don't donate food. Worry about your business first. I'll give you a number. For every dollar invested in food waste prevention, the business on average could be saving around $6 to $7.
Right.
So we always start with food waste prevention.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. All right, we're at agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, I have no changes to the agenda, but when we get to consent, I will be pulling a consent item.
Fair enough. Council members, any agenda changes? Okay, then let's talk about consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any consent items? All right. Graham?
Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend that we pull agenda item number 7, which is the continuation of the emergency for sewer system repairs, because we have a lot of folks here waiting for other agenda items. I'd recommend we move this to after agenda item 19 under administrative reports.
As long as you remind me.
I will do so.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for consent items?
No, sir, no speaker cards.
All right. Then, with the exception of agenda item 7, or consent item 7, I'd like to move that we approve the consent items. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for public comment?
We do, sir. We have 7 comments. The first one is from Skip Hammond.
Mr. Hammond, welcome.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. I have some copies of a resolution I'd like to give each council member.
You can give them to our clerk. They'll take them.
Yeah, again, good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Skip Hammond. I live in San Diego County, and I'm a resident of Carlsbad, and I've been a resident there for over 40 years. I'm a volunteer with United Sovereign Americans. I'm not a spokesperson, but United Sovereign Americans is a nationwide organization with thousands of active volunteers in over 20 states. Today I come to you as a concerned citizen sharing alarming information about our state's voter database uncovered through thousands of hours of research conducted by a highly qualified and credentialed data team. While the numbers are staggering and somewhat difficult to comprehend, one thing is clear: they don't add up. Just like your checkbook must balance, so must our votes. If you had 10,000 fewer dollars in your bank account than you had deposited, you would certainly want to know what happened. And if a company had a significant discrepancy in their books, they would most certainly conduct an audit. And in fact, yearly audits are required by law for all public companies. Our audit of the 2022 election, using only official data provided by state election officials, shows that the 2022 election may not have been accurate or legally compliant. We're not saying one candidate won over another or that any election should be overturned. The state official data from a certified election shows that the votes as counted were not all valid and accurate under the law. Tonight, we will present you with a resolution demanding an end to the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections, along with a summary of our findings and the laws that apply. We're happy to meet with you to go over this information, including more detail about specific findings. If you have questions that I cannot answer now, I will commit to getting an answer in writing from United Sovereign Americans executive team as soon as possible. This data and our request for an investigation has been shared with state election officials and law enforcement. It is essential that you, as our representatives, make it clear that this must be taken seriously. Tonight we come to you, our closest elected representatives, for support and action. We are asking that you listen to the resolution, ask questions if you have them, and then vote promptly for its passage. If your action on this resolution will illustrate your dedication and support to the concerns of your constituents and your country. Thank you. Our next three speakers will read the resolution in three parts, and our final speaker will conclude our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to tell you something before we get too far down the road. This is not an agendized item, so we can't take a vote on this, but that doesn't mean we can't put it on a future agenda.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Susan Schroeder.
Hello, welcome. How are you?
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
My name is Susan, and I live in San Diego County. Resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. Whereas it is a recognized civil right in the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections. Quote, and the right of suffrage can be denied by a debasement or delusion of the weight of a citizen's vote just as effectively as by wholly prohibiting the free exercise of the franchise, end quote. U.S. Supreme Court, Reynolds v. Sims, 1964. Whereas it is the duty of our election officials to guarantee our elections are accurate and free from distortion or manipulation. Quote, Congress seeks to guard the election of members of Congress against any possible unfairness by compelling everyone concerned in holding the election to a strict and scrupulous observance of every duty devolved upon him while so engaged. The evil intent consists in disobedience to the law, end quote. U.S. Supreme Court in Recoy, 1888. Whereas our constitutional system of representative government only works when the following four tenets of an election are upheld. Number one, the voter rolls must be accurate. National Voter Registration Act, 1993. Number two, votes counted must be from eligible voters. U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 2. Number three, the number of votes counted must equal the number of voters who voted. Number four, there can be no more than 1 in 125,000 ballots in error by the voting system. Help America Vote Act, 2002. Whereas open source audit of the California 2022 general election conducted by California citizens has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that appear to violate both federal and state laws, including 5,886,198 ineligible, or 5,886,198 ineligible or uncertain registration violations found within the California State Voter or Voter Roll database. 2,776,939 votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrations. 123,785 more votes counted than voters who voted. No one knows who cast them. 2,776,849 apparent voting violations are in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election. The maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election in California was 90. Certification as defined by law and attestation of accuracy and compliance appears to have been fraudulent and illegal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Ann Machinsky.
Hi, Ann. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ann Machinsky, and I've lived in San Diego County my whole life, no years attached. Whereas these findings trample legal accuracy requirements of the voting system during a federal election. Accuracy is defined as the ability of the system to capture and report the specific selections and absence of selections made by a voter without error. Whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can be lawfully conducted. Certification of an election that varies from the law is an abridgment of the civil rights of the citizens, a fraud ab initio. United States versus Throckmorton, 1878. Quote, from time immemorial, an election to public office has been, in point of substance, no more and no less than the expression by qualified electors of their choice of candidates, end quote. U.S. Supreme Court, United States versus Classic, 1941. Whereas the 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of the guaranteed protection of our natural rights under a government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damage to our families, our way of life, and the fabric of these United States. Therefore, we call upon our representatives to provide relief to the people and the assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 general election that upholds these existing laws and equitable principles of law. Number one, proof of citizenship, identity, and eligibility required to register and vote, not anonymous attestation. 2, voter rolls certified accurate and available for public review and challenge 30 days before the start of early voting. Voters added after that date must bring proof of citizenship, identity, and address in person to a qualified official at each polling place. 3, hand-marked secure ballots similar to currency. Where imaging technology is used for tabulation, the security features must be verifiable in the ballot image. 4, systems, machines, security measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with federal law for fraud prevention regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie Zolik.
I have one question before you go on, Jackie. Are all of the speakers with this organization?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we dealt with this before we moved on to somebody else. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Jackie. I live in San Diego
Hold the microphone
County.
down, Jackie. Thank you.
Number 5, adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witness after being given full and effective observation rights. Candidates and trained citizens must be allowed immediate access to ballots, ballot images, and CVRs. Number 6, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations, and systems, must maintain end-to-end chain of custody from voter to vote count to final canvass, including auditability and witness transfer with paper records. Number 7, a NIST compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2, must be performed. These audits are to be conducted by qualified, insured, and bonded security, forensics, or financial auditors, not personnel from within the election system. Reconciliation will include the vote count, real physical ballots, adjudication, CVRs, ballot count, qualified voter count, custody transfer, and all other paper and electronic election systems, including logs. Number 8, if the total of unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held in the state for those candidates affected, unless the issues can be provably corrected by a manual hand recount and a full review of records. Number 9, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration through certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately recorded. Be it resolved that the El Cajon City Council members stand in support with the concerns and remedies presented here. We implore the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, California Legislature, federal legislators, law enforcement, federal and state prosecutors, judges, and both California Secretary of State and county registrars of voters to cooperate and fulfill these firm requests of the people.
Thank you.
Sir, the last speaker for this group is Bill Davies.
Hello, sir. How are you? Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Davies. I live in El Cajon and have been a resident of California for more than 40 years. I'm also a volunteer and not an official spokesperson with United Sovereign Americans. What you heard today is the culmination of thousands of hours of work by our highly qualified and credentialed volunteer data teams from California and across the country. It's a powerfully written resolution outlining massive inaccuracies in our 2022 election, from registration through certification. In it, you heard us ask for meaningful remedies that will proactively protect the validity of the 2024 general election for all Americans. In fact, the resolution cited many U.S. Supreme Court precedents that support the need for such actions. Laws are being ignored. Bottom line, the checkbook is not balancing, and we need certainty. The voting system, which controls our most vitally important right, the right to choose our representatives, is not producing an accurate, trustworthy result. Do you think these anomalies within our election system, a system which is part of the national security infrastructure, should continue to be ignored? Let's step back for a minute and look at the big picture. Large numbers of Americans, including many right here in California, have questions about the trustworthiness of our elections. I think we can all agree that this was not the case, but official data shows these concerns are valid, and the law says resolving them is essential in securing our liberty. How much is it costing us not to fix the problem? How much is it costing our GDP, our military, our foreign policy, our health, the self-esteem of our children and young people, and how much is it costing our dignity to keep fighting each other? The cost is immeasurable, so we urge you to agree to putting this resolution on the agenda for the next City Council meeting and voting in support of fair, honest, and valid elections. Our website showcases our initiatives nationwide and has some extremely informative videos revealing the anomalies and apparent violations of law in California. The website is uniteforfreedom.com. That's unite, the number 4, freedom.com. I encourage you to check it out and learn more about our organization. One more time, that's unite, number 4, freedom.com. Thank you very much for your time today.
I think you've been elected to answer the question, unless you'd like somebody else to come up and answer questions.
Well, whoever wants to answer my question, but are you affiliated with the Sovereign Citizens Movement?
No, sir. Our organization is called United Sovereign Americans. It's a nonprofit, non-political organization, and they have state chapters across the state, and we're representing the chapter in California, particularly San Diego County.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Phil.
Just a quick question. I noticed in that mail-in ballots wasn't in the resolution. Is that something that your organization is okay with 100% mail-in ballots, or do you know? Or maybe I go to the website and check it out.
I'm not an official spokesperson for that, but I think that is that in the mix of just wanting to have valid, certifiable elections, whether it's an absentee ballot that can be accurately validated or in-person voting.
Wonderful. Yeah, I agree with almost everything that's in this. And it doesn't matter if these inaccuracies are intentional or unintentional. It's still a big problem. And
it's against the law.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter if it's intentional or unintentional. It's still a big problem. And a lot of states don't have the measures in place to prove fraud. and that's where the state legislatures need to come in. And as a local elected official, we don't have power over this, but we have influence. And I think that's what you're asking us to do is use our voice to give influence to it.
Yes, sir. We, the people, and that you as our representative, are demanding that we have valid, certifiable elections.
Completely agree. Thank you for doing this, Skip.
Sure. You're welcome.
Michelle first.
Please tell me the website again, United for...
Unite, number 4, freedom.com.
Okay, uniteforfreedom.com.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of good information on that website.
Perfect.
All right.
Steve.
I think everyone would hope for an election with integrity. That's the bedrock of our society, is that it's fair, free, and accurate election. My question is, since we don't have authority over the elections, the county of San Diego does, did your organization find any concerns with the way San Diego County is administering its elections?
That data is, they analyzed the data statewide. They did not analyze it on a county-by-county basis.
So my concern is we're asking the county of San Diego to do something that they may already be doing very well. And what I'm trying to find out is what information could we get about San Diego County? If you have that, if you could send it to me, that would be great.
Okay, well, I'll try to follow up on that and give you that information if it's available.
All right, anybody else? Well, thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate your quest, and America needs citizens to be involved and hold government accountable. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
And thank you, Council. And it'd be great if you would consider putting it on your agenda in the future.
Yeah, we'll discuss it.
I'll make sure the clerk has my contact information.
I appreciate that. Any other information that would be helpful to the staff? Because, look, I'll just tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have staff vet the organization, make sure that we're not stepping into something we're not comfortable with, and then we'll discuss it.
That's awesome. That's
all right.
All we can ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
2 more speakers, sir. David Condit.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the City Council. I'm here today. I'm asking about a meeting, a City Council meeting that happened on April 9th. And Mr. DiMaggio presented a list of bills in California, to be considered in California, various stages of being considered, that the city felt were negative to the city as well as local entities. And I was wondering if I could, and I know the city may or may not be able to do much about it. I know that a couple of letters were generated for it against a couple of the bills, but I'm not sure how much your letters under the heading of City of San Diego, how much they affect what actually goes on in Sacramento. And I'm interested in getting a copy of that list if I can, and any updates that they have been made to that list since then, because it was a couple months ago. And I'm interested in starting some sort of citizens review, and to review them and to understand why they're negative for the city, and then to form, I don't know if I could form a citizens group, or maybe it's a citizens group of one person, or maybe other people. But I'd like to meet. I'm thinking of meeting with state representatives, my representatives, which are Akilah Weber and Brian Jones in my case, and just going over the list and highlighting maybe a few of them and saying, do you support this? Why? If I think it's bad for the city or bad for local entities, why are you still supporting it? What's going on? It's kind of bringing to their attention that we're paying attention to what's going on in Sacramento, and somehow publicize this. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, whether Facebook or Nextdoor or something like that, to kind of build a group to publicize the fact that, well, Akilah Weber is going to vote for this thing, which is negative for the city of El Cajon. Do you want to vote for her in the next election? I'm not sure where that would go, but I would like to get a copy of the list if there's any updates to it. And I'd like to kind of pursue it from a citizen's point of view to try to help the city of El Cajon. Maybe you can't do as much as perhaps we can do to talk to our own representatives. So that's what I'm interested in doing.
Vince, would you be able to keep him on your email chain about updates on...
Yes, if Mr. Condit would like to provide his contact information to our city clerk, I'll be sure he gets the list of bills that I presented to the city council. Most of the bills are in process. They're in various committees at this point.
Okay.
Some may have been passed by the house that they originated in and are now over at the other house.
Yeah.
Usually I wait a little bit longer until I give a comprehensive update to the City Council until I know the status of the bill.
Okay.
I'd be happy to provide you the list. That's no problem at all.
Okay. Okay. So how would I get the list? Would I get it from somebody?
If you would give your email address to our city clerk,
Okay.
Mr. DiMaggio will keep you informed, like he does us, about these interesting and interesting bills that come out of Sacramento.
I wish I had as big a group as these people do, although they're not here now, so I don't know where they're going.
But they're a group of 5 or 6 people, and they're making a difference. And I think people always feel like they can't stand up to the behemoth of Sacramento. But I've seen small groups of people make a huge impact. So I don't think you're wasting your time.
Okay.
And we appreciate people speaking up for us, because you're right. They expect us to complain about things, but they get nervous when constituents start complaining.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Phil?
David, I love what you're doing. I love your heart and your passion for it. And if there's anything I can do from my position as a city councilman to support you, or maybe get some more citizens to join your group, I'd be happy to support you in any way. So,
very good. All right, thank you.
If I can get your email from the clerk, I'll send you an email. We can connect offline.
All right. Thank you for listening to me.
Yeah.
Oh, David, I just want to commend you for coming in here and caring about how this state is run. And I'll tell you something, when a state assembly person or a senator gets a letter, they know that probably 1,000 people think the same way. So, that's what you're doing is really important.
Yeah. I mean, so many of us aren't even paying attention to what's going on in Sacramento. So just letting people know this is what's going on, these negative things are going on, I think that helps. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
David, I'd like to commend you as well. Here's an example why you're so important. At the MTS meeting last week, we're talking about a new copper line just between El Cajon and Santee. One resident showed up to express concern about the safety with the configuration of the new people having to transfer from this trolley to this trolley after dark, standing on the platform. It's one thing if a board member says it. It's totally different if a member of the public says it to the board. And one lady resulted in a July 2nd meeting coming up of the head of the trolley line, the head of scheduling, and the head of safety. Her one person's words got these 3 people together to talk about this thing, to talk about safety in El Cajon. So one person is plenty to cause action. I appreciate you standing up.
Yeah, I know safety is going to really raise some red flags, but in any case, it's good to hear that happen. So thank you.
Yeah, there's one more thing. Sorry.
My 3 minutes are up.
But, we're not infallible. None of us are, and neither is the state legislature by far. And sometimes someone will come in here and tell us about their concern, and we go, wait a minute, I never thought of that. Maybe that isn't a good idea. Staff, look into this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the state legislature, to a certain extent, does the same thing. So that's
appealing to the portion of the people in Sacramento who have an open mind and are willing to admit that, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so, that might be a hard sell in Sacramento.
Yeah.
But, especially when you come here, sometimes when we get the public comment, I go, oh, that's not a good idea. And then I go, wait, this guy said this. It is a good, and I'll go back and forth trying to figure out what's the best way to do it, because I can't think of everything.
Okay. All right. Very good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our last speaker is Brenda Hammond.
Hi, Brenda. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, Graham, Mr. Mitchell. So now let's have some fun. So I'm house sitting for a friend in Santee right now, so I'm still close by. It's funny because I'm getting this reputation of being an environmentalist, probably because I'm but but I've always done that, right? But I'm not much of an environmentalist because I still smoke sometimes. Like when I light a candle every night for our law enforcement and for all of our first responders and, yes, city staff, especially all the public works in every city. They do so much. We need to commend them more. Which brings me to last Thursday night when I was sitting with a candle in front of El Cajon Police Department. My intuition told me to put out that cigarette and get in my car, and good thing because a grown mountain lion casually walked by me. I mean, walked right in front of El Cajon PD and walked down the steps, just sauteed down the steps. So my point is we need to respect the wild because, after all, we're building in their backyards. Thank you for the concerts. A lot of fun. And I have some time left, so I'd like to dedicate my public comment to Dr. John Oxney. Because of him, I do not have seizures, and I can't get crazy. As much as there's a woman doctor that's been following me around the county, I want her thrown out of this county, Dr. Wilma. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
No other speakers, sir.
Okay. There are no written communications on today's agenda, and we're now at public hearings. We have one item to consider. Item 14 is for the fiscal year 24-25 City Housing Authority and successor agency budgets. I'll ask staff to introduce this item. Hi, Clay.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council. My name is Clay Shane. I'm the Director of Finance for the City of El Cajon. We're very happy to be here today to continue our presentation of the fiscal year 24-25 annual budget. For today's presentation, we'll begin with updates from the June 11th City Council meeting. Happy to report there have been no material changes to the information provided at that meeting. That's the conclusion of the updates. In today's presentation, we will also provide a brief overview of the wastewater fund, other city funds, our capital improvement program, answer any questions and entertain any discussions you have, and then at the end of the item, we will seek adoption of the 24-25 annual budget. With that, I'd like to introduce Autumn Rieberger to kick off the remainder of the presentation.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and distinguished members of the City Council. My name is Autumn Rieberger. I am the Senior Management Analyst in the Finance Department, and I am happy to announce that our 2024-25 preliminary budget has been finalized. This is published and available on the City's website. I would like to take this moment to thank our Parks and Recreation Manager, Heather Carter, for allowing us to use this beautiful photo she captured during the Wall That Heals event this past March. Continuing from our June 11th discussion, today we'll be reviewing our non-general funds, starting with the wastewater fund. So for fiscal year 25 proposed, we're looking at a beginning fund balance of $40.3 million. Our revenues are $35.4 million. These are primarily a result of user fees. Expenditures of $49.2 million. While this number does look high, please keep in mind that it does include capital activity. Of that total, there are $18.7 million in capital projects for wastewater. That leaves us with an ending fund balance of $26.5 million. Next, we'll look at the special revenue funds. These are our top 5 annual funds. Street maintenance, gas tax, $4.3 million. Low and moderate housing projects, $3.2 million. The Magnolia Performing Arts Center, just over $1 million. Recreation special programs, approximately $650,000. And local public safety, just over $600,000. Our single debt service fund is for our pension obligation bonds at $9.1 million. Next, we'll look at our internal service funds. These are primarily service for other city funds and services. Our vehicle maintenance at $2.6 million, and our vehicle replacement at $1.5 million. Now, the vehicle replacement is a multi-year fund, so this total is a combination of the estimated carryover as well as the new vehicle purchase for fiscal year 25. Our self-insurance, that consists of the liability claims and the workers' comp at just over $6 million. Our information technology at $4.3 million, and other post-employment benefits at $1.2 million. Looking at our capital projects, we currently have 48 existing projects with a $90.9 million combined project budget. For fiscal year 25, we are proposing 10 new projects totaling $9.2 million, with 8 project amendments totaling $6.8 million. If approved, our capital projects would consist of a total of 58 projects and a budget of $106.9 million. These are the proposed 25 new these are the proposed fiscal year 25 10 new capital projects for that $9.2 million. You can see that a majority of these are related to street improvements. The city attorney has asked that action be taken as a separate motion per agency. So staff is asking for the following 3 recommended actions. First, acting as the city council to adopt the fiscal 25 annual budget, approve and adopt the appropriations limit, approve the fund balance designation. Second, acting as the housing authority to adopt the fiscal 25 budget. And third, acting as the successor agency to adopt the fiscal 25 budget. This concludes our presentation. We're available for any questions or comments you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me see if there's any questions. Doesn't look like it. I appreciate that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards, sir.
All right. Do we need to close the public hearing? Hold on a second.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, I need to make a motion to close public hearing. Yeah. Second. Please vote. Okay. Discussion, or somebody like to make a motion?
Apologize, sir. The motion carries by unanimous vote.
Sorry.
Just a quick comment for the public. We had a long presentation about our budget, I think, a month ago. We have a balanced budget here at the city. We have a large reserve for a rainy day fund. And I want to thank our finance director and all departments for running that balanced budget. We appreciate all the hard work. So with that, I'll make a motion, move adoption as outlined in the staff report, adopting fiscal year 2024-25 annual budget, approving and adopting the annual appropriations limit for 24-25, and approving the designation of the general fund balances.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
I'll make a motion, acting as Housing Authority Board of Directors, adopt a resolution titled Resolution of El Cajon Housing Authority adopting fiscal year 2024-25 budget.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
And my last motion will be acting on as the successor agency to the former Redevelopment Agency Board of Directors, adopt a resolution titled Resolution of the City Council of the City of El Cajon as a successor agency to the former El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, adopting the fiscal year 2024-25 budget.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you, Clay. Thank you to the whole team. All right. We're at administrative reports. We have 5 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 15 is an interview for the Mission Trails Regional Park Committee. And we actually only have one applicant to be the El Cajon representative. So, Mr. Penwell, would you please come to the podium? You will have 3 minutes to tell us about your qualifications, and the council may ask you some follow-up questions afterwards. Hello, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Penwell. I've made application to be on the Mission Trails Regional Park Citizens Advisory Committee. I was encouraged to do so by other members of the committee, as El Cajon does not have a current representative on that advisory committee. My qualification, I'm an El Cajon resident, been here for 30 years, raised my kids here, used Mission Trails several times. I worked for the government, federal gov, 30 years, environmental engineer, Navy, and I'm willing to work for the city and the council to make our needs known to the Citizen Advisory Committee for El Cajon. And I'm willing to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. Questions?
Just a comment. Thank you for applying. I mean, we don't have a long line of people applying for these committees, so
I noticed.
Yeah, we appreciate your willingness to give back.
I'm here asking for your nomination to do that.
Thank you for applying as well, because there actually is an El Cajon connection to the Mission Trails Regional Park. That is the new water recycling program, has a brine line or leftovers that goes through Mission Trails Park. And it was quite a negotiation with the city of San Diego because of the environmental concerns, what happens if there's a break, et cetera, et cetera. So it's it really does have an El Cajon connection to it, and thank you for willing to be a voice for El Cajon.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. I'm interested in anything that might have an effect, city to park, either way, both ways. I'm a liaison between the two if I'm nominated. Thank you.
I think the applicant is extremely well qualified, so I'm ready to make a motion.
Before you do that, I think our city manager had a statement or question.
I just wanted to point out that Mr. Penwell and his wife both attended one of the town hall meetings that were just conducted in the last 2 weeks, and his input was very valuable and helpful that I'll be presenting to the council later on.
All right. Gary? Hold on. Let me. Are there any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards, sir.
Okay, then I'll bring it back to you, Gary.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Mr. Penwell to the commission.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Penwell. Mr. Penwell, I think we have to administer the oath of office.
We will actually do that after the meeting, sir.
After the meeting?
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Item 16 is a request for an all-way stop sign on Sandalwood Drive at Applewood Drive. Will staff please tell us about this? Hi, Maria. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. My name is Mario Sanchez, City Engineer for the Engineering Services Department. I'm here this afternoon to talk about an all-way stop sign request at Sandalwood Drive at the intersection of Applewood Drive. So Sandalwood Drive is between two major arterials, Valentine Street and Mollison Avenue, and to the north is Broadway Avenue, and to the south is Interstate 8. Sandalwood Drive is used as a small cut through to get from one side to the other, and it serves the subdivisions, all those homes above Sandalwood, Cedar, Applewood Drive, and Brockwood Drive. So This concern came in from nearby residents to investigate the need for an all-way stop due to concerns about speeding, cut-through traffic, and the overall traffic safety at that intersection. I have a couple photos that show the intersection itself. This is a photo viewing west at Sandalwood Drive, and it carries approximately 2,100 vehicles per day, so it's representative of a residential street. And this is a view looking east as you're going towards Mollison Avenue on Sandalwood Drive. I just want to point out there's a curve that it's really difficult to see if you exit Applewood Drive from the north, and it's difficult to see cars going westbound. And Sandalwood carries about 420 odd vehicles per day, two-way traffic, and this is a view at the intersection. So the Engineering Services Department, we look at the history, accident history, measure the volume, and look at sight distance. And there's roughly in the last 5-year period, there's one intersection-related accident. And we follow the California Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and we also use a point system kind of modeled by the City of San Diego to determine all-way stops. So a minimum of 30 points out of 50 points is required for an all-way stop, but special conditions, sight distance is an overwhelming factor to install an all-way stop here, and it serves as a speed breaker in terms of slowing down traffic as you approach this intersection, and it also provides safety for vehicles wishing to exit Sandalwood Drive. So this is our proposed installation. There is existing stop sign on Sandalwood Drive, but there are no stop signs. on Applewood Drive, but there's no stop signs on Applewood. So staff's recommendations to approve the installation of permanent all-way stops at this particular intersection, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Questions for Mario? Yes.
Mr. Sanchez, thank you. Is it possible that we can add painted red curbs on the Sandalwood at Applewood? I know that is much appreciated on Mollison at Spinell, and they have the same problem. So I was just wondering if that is an issue in that particular neighborhood of people parking right up towards the corners and creating visual barriers for those coming out on Applewood.
I'll note that we can take a look at for people that are parking at the intersection, which they shouldn't be, but yeah, we can always add red curb at the points there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, Mario. Thank you for the presentation. I would like to add another consideration instead of a red curb, no parking of vehicles over 6 feet. That still preserves a parking space, but it allows cars to park there, which don't obstruct your view around the corner. I did notice that you said the minimum corner sight distance of 275 feet is desirable, and that this has less. Can you tell me what your estimate of that?
We measured about less than 100 feet for the sight distance if you're making a southbound to right or left turn there, so it's less than the desirable sight.
Yeah. So even though it's only 17 points of the minimum 30, I think for me that is enough to justify the project going forward. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Mario. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards, sir.
All right. Leave it back to the City Council to make a motion or discussion.
Move adoption.
Second.
Please vote.
Mayor, may I have your vote, please?
Mine? Try again. There we go.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. Next, item 17 is for the third amendment to the management agreement with Live Nation. And I'll ask staff to tell us about this. Hey, David. Hello, Paris.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Paris and I are here today to present a proposed amendment to the city's agreement with Live Nation and to provide you with an update regarding the Magnolia's performance. So as quick background, in February of 2018, the city entered into a 5-year agreement with Live Nation to manage and operate the Magnolia, a 1,200-seat live entertainment venue on behalf of the city. In March of 2023, the city extended that agreement by 2 years to account for the nearly 2 years that were closed during COVID. The current term goes through August of 2026. So this slide shows the target number of shows as outlined in the management agreement and compared with the actual number of shows. You can see that last year we hosted 80 shows at the venue, and this year we're on track to host 89 shows at the venue. So about 24 shows better than what the management agreement specifies. The next slide shows the Magnolia's adjusted operating income. That's the revenue minus show and fixed expenses. I'll be referring to this formula throughout the presentation as the AOI. The light blue bars show the pro forma AOI as reflected in the agreement. The pro forma is a financial forecast for the Magnolia that was developed when we were predicting how well the facility would do. The dark blue bars show the Magnolia's actual AOI. The current agreement specifies that the city will share 30% of the profit when Live Nation exceeds the pro forma AOI and 50% when the AOI exceeds $0. And so as you can see, excuse me, I put here in the brackets on the left so that you can kind of have a visual representation as to how the agreement's written. So under the current incentive bonus formula, the city owes Live Nation approximately $720,000 or roughly $145,000 per year on average for the first 5 years. Now that we've opened the facility and we kind of have an accurate and complete operating picture as to how the facility is performing, it's prudent to revisit the incentive bonus and to find something that's more financially balanced for both the city and Live Nation. So the city and Live Nation has negotiated some modifications to the incentive bonus and management fee outlined in the agreement. There we go. So under this suggested change, Live Nation would become eligible for the incentive bonus after the break-even point under the new definition of an AOI, which, as you can see in this graphic, includes the management fee. Whoops. Therefore, the city would not share any part of the incentive bonus with Live Nation until the city actually achieves profitability. After the break-even point, the city would share 50% of the incentive bonus with Live Nation. And this slide shows the proposed new AOI formula and the proposed break-even point where profit sharing would take place. And you can see that the floor where we start sharing profit is well above the zero mark because it includes the management fee now. If the City Council adopts the proposed amendment, the prior balance owed to Live Nation would be adjusted to this new break-even point, and the city wouldn't owe the $722,000 that we currently owe under the arrangement. So this table depicts the new AOI and expected profit sharing for the first 5 years, and as I mentioned, the profit sharing drops to zero under this proposed amendment. So due to the increased cost of running the business, Live Nation is requesting an adjustment to the management fee to reflect the rising cost of inflation. The change would increase the annual management fee by roughly 6.5% of the annual fee, or bringing the annual fee to $400,000 this next fiscal year, with an ongoing annual adjustment of 3%. Now, I would like to invite Paris up to talk about some of the exciting stuff happening at the Magnolia.
The Magnolia has had a busy year with 89 events in total. We've hosted star shows like Kevin Hart, Juanes, and Leve, family-friendly and community events like Story Pirates, Jive Dance Studios, plus an array of rentals. Our mission is to grow and diversify the acts at the venue and to have more concerts, more comedians, and more community events, with the objective of bringing more people into the El Cajon community, not just to see our shows, but to explore all that El Cajon has to offer. Bringing more acts means bringing more people to the city, and we strive to ensure each fan is receiving a best-in-class experience. We survey every fan who buys a ticket for a show so that they can provide feedback on their experience at the venue. Year over year, we continue to receive extremely high satisfaction rates for both the venue and our staff, and I provided that statistic here. Additionally, we maintain a 4.6 stars on Google reviews. We're excited to announce that we were informed this weekend that we have been voted by the San Diego Union Tribune's Readers Poll San Diego's favorite entertainment venue for 2024.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. Allowing our guests to provide us with direct feedback helps us understand what they love about the venue, the areas of opportunity for us to improve, and allows us to meet the fans' expectations. Sorry. Looking ahead, we're thrilled to announce another busy year. Already, we have 53 events on the books from July through the end of December, with that number continuing to grow every week. With an array of genres from country, comedy, Latin, metal, and rock, we believe it will be another exciting year for the venue. Myself and the Live Nation team are extraordinarily honored and proud to bring this best-in-class venue to El Cajon, and we hope to have a long partnership with the city ahead of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's start with questions.
Maybe I missed it. How long is the current contract for that that's on the table?
So it's a 5-year term, and we've extended it by 2 years, so it takes it out to August 2026.
So 2 years, a 2-year extension.
So it's total 7 years for the first term.
And then this is maybe off topic, but were we able to get Magnolia onto the P-bid board? Is that happening yet? Is that off topic? Are we allowed to talk about that?
They need to amend one of the PBID rules, so it's in the works, I believe.
It's in the works, and Ms. Landon has there's a part on the agenda where there's a report from the Magnolia that's part of the standing agenda now. So
okay,
she's working her way on.
We want you on there.
I want to be on there.
Okay, good. That's all my questions. Thank you.
More questions? I have a question, Dave. At this current rate of projection, when do we stand to break even on our ROI?
I think under the new formula, and I'll go back a couple slides, so right there. So you can see the distance where we have the new break-even point is this yellow bar up top. So not just when we best the pro forma AOI, but when the facility exceeds 0 on the AOI plus covers our management fee, that's when the city is going to be breaking even and making money. So the margins are closing seemingly every year, and we're probably about 100 to 150 off. But I anticipate as we continue to grow in success, noting last year we had 80 shows, this year we have 89 shows. As long as we continue that trajectory, it should be soon.
Well, Paris, you don't remember this, but there was a time when we had the operator come and ask us for between $500,000 and $1 million every year just to keep things going, with maybe 5 to 10 shows a year. So this is really refreshing to me. I think we made the right decision by going with Live Nation, so I'm very happy. Anybody else? All right, thank you so much.
Well, not to mention the great Bill Wells entertainer that's going to be there.
It's a fun show. I really enjoy doing it. So, well, I think we're good. Thank you very much, guys. Are there any speaker cards on this item?
We have no speaker cards.
Okay. So what do we need? Yeah. Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
I've got a comment outside of the question here.
No, please.
This is really a good amendment for the people of El Cajon because it includes a management expense now in the pro forma, actually in the actual results. It switches from pro forma to actual, which is good. So we know that Live Nation will be careful with their expenses as part of the equation. But objectively, there isn't another organization that could do what the Live Nation is doing at this facility. There just really isn't anybody else that could bring in this kind of talent, bring in this kind of people into El Cajon who aren't from this city. So it's just a great amendment for the people of El Cajon. It's very favorable to the city, and we couldn't have done better with a partner. So
completely agree. All right. Any other comments or looking for a motion then?
Yeah. Move to authorize the city manager to execute the third amendment to the management agreement between the city and Live Nation Worldwide.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just also acknowledge Ms. Landon has a concert to put on tonight, so she's going to be leaving us. But also Sean Heikemper, her boss, is here, and Sean's been with us since the beginning in the negotiations, and it's obvious their management and leadership has really shown that we're competing with the best venues in San Diego County, and now we are the best venue in San Diego County, and it's really due to them, not much that we've done on our side of the table.
Thank you, Sean. Good to see you. Anybody else? All right, thanks. Go put your show on. Item 18 is a report on a ballot initiative to amend Proposition 47 and a review of various related legislative bills. I'd like to ask our Assistant City Manager, Mr. Vince DiMaggio, to please tell us about this item.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Californians for Safer Communities, which is comprised of a group of district attorneys, retail businesses, and victims of crime, have obtained enough signatures to put a Proposition 47 reform initiative before the voters in November. The initiative would include the following changes to Proposition 47. It would classify certain drug-related offenses as treatment-mandated felonies. Individuals with 2 or more drug-related convictions would be offered treatment. In exchange for successfully completing treatment, would have their felony charge dismissed. Currently, possession of illegal drugs is a misdemeanor. Secondly, the initiative would add fentanyl to a list of drugs including cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamines that would be charged as felonies if someone is found in possession of those drugs and a firearm. Currently, possession of fentanyl and a firearm is punishable as a misdemeanor with confinement in county jail of not more than 1 year. Third, which is the real heart of the initiative, for individuals with 2 or more prior theft convictions, the initiative would treat the third or more theft conviction as a felony, even if the amount stolen is less than $950. Currently, theft convictions of property under $950 is punishable by up to 6 months in jail. This initiative would make it punishable by up to 3 years in prison and increase sentences based on the criminal history of the individual. Governor Newsom and the majority leadership in the legislature are stridently opposed to any reform for Prop 47. They have prepared a suite of 12 so-called anti-crime bills that are meant to be alternatives to the November ballot initiative. However, the governor's package of 12 bills would not take effect if the November Proposition 47 ballot initiative passes, as all 12 bills contain non-operative clauses, known otherwise as poison pills. The 12 bills have no relationship, either directly or indirectly, with Proposition 47 reform initiative slated for the November ballot. In fact, in each case, they are essentially for show bills meant to be a ruse for the public to think that the slate of bills is somehow superior to the Proposition 47 reform ballot measure. And I'm going to go over the 12 bills briefly because things are changing rapidly, including today. AB 1779 allows criminal theft charges to be consolidated and brought in any jurisdiction where the merchandise was stolen, received, found, or where the accused acted in relation to the merchandise. Interestingly, in AB 1794, which was originally written to allow retailers to submit details of alleged retail theft through an online portal, was pulled by author Kevin McCarty from Sacramento because he has broken with the Democratic Party over the treatment of these 12 bills and the poison pill provision. So he's now pulled his bill from the suite of 12 bills. AB 1802 removes the 2031 sunset provision on an existing retail theft statute. AB 1960 creates sentencing enhancements only until 2030 for retail theft committed while in commission of a felony. However, this was authored by Assemblymember Soria, and the author has withdrawn her name from the bill for the same reasons that McCarty has pulled his bill back. However, the bill is still alive, and another legislator has assumed authorship of the bill. AB 1972 requires Regional Property Crimes Task Force to cooperate with railroad police. AB 2943 makes it a crime to possess stolen property intended for sale or exchange if it's not for personal use, even where the value exceeds $950. AB 3209 establishes a retail theft restraining order. SB 905 makes forcible entry into a vehicle with the intent to commit a theft punishable by 1 year in jail. SB 982 repeals the 2026 sunset date for organized retail theft statute concerning 2 or more individuals. SB 1144 prevents online marketplaces from listing or selling stolen goods. SB 1242 creates an aggravating factor when setting a fire to a retail establishment for the purpose of entering to commit theft. And SB 1416 creates a 2030 sunset on certain sentencing enhancements. In the past several days, members of the Democratic majority have withdrawn their support for the governor's 12-bill package as the politics behind the entire effort becomes clear. Votes on the 12 bills were scheduled for yesterday, but did not occur as the support has slowly ebbed away. As of a couple of hours ago, before this meeting just started, no votes on any of the 12 bills have occurred. They are slated to have the votes, but they have not occurred yet. In the event the 12 bills do not pass, the most recent reporting has the governor attempting to place a competing ballot measure on the November ballot in an effort to confuse the public and siphon support away from the Proposition 47 reform measure. So it's a very fluid situation. The proponents of the ballot measure fully intend to go forward. They were asked to withdraw the ballot measure by the 27th of June. They've indicated they have no intention of doing that. And it's unknown at this time whether any of the 12 bills that I just highlighted that the governor is offering as an alternative to the Prop 47 reform will be voted on or go forward, as it doesn't seem there's enough support amongst the majority party to carry those. So that's where we are at this point, and that's the update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions? Could you email me a copy of your report?
Certainly.
Thanks. Okay. Any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards here.
Okay. We're just looking to accept the report. It's just for information. We don't need actually a motion on that. Okay. Lastly, item 19 is a summary of the town hall meetings. regarding a possible sales tax measure, and I'll ask our city manager, Graham Mitchell, to please introduce this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The intent of this agenda item is to provide an update and some feedback and ultimately some decision-making points that the City Council can keep in the back of their head as we present future recommendations to the City Council. As you know, Measure J sunsets at the end of 2028, and as part of understanding what to do with either the city budget or whether to contemplate an extension or a continuation of that measure, the City Council went out and authorized the polling of likely voters, and that occurred in April. Actually in March, almost 1,000 likely voters were surveyed, and they gave the City Council a good sense of the general feelings of the city. Are we on the right track? Are we on the wrong track? What is important to residents? What's not important to residents? And ultimately, how would residents support or not support a continuation of Measure J? That was very useful data. Staff presented that to the City Council, but what it lacked, what it had was really good quantitative data, but what it lacked is qualitative data. It was hard to understand how people really thought that way that they did, and if they were presented with different information or more information, would that change their recommendation to the City Council, or what was really important to the city for the residents of El Cajon, and what would they want the City Council to know. So with that, the City Council directed staff to put on or host 4 different town halls. Those 4 different events occurred. 3 of them occurred in the evening. 1 of them occurred on a Saturday between June 13th and June 20th at different recreation centers around the city of El Cajon, with a total of 56 participants coming to those. From a format perspective, it was open dialogue. There was a lot of questions. It was free flowing, but there was almost a lecture presented about budgeting, and that budget presentation was to help establish a foundation for the participants to engage in an activity that we put on where they had the opportunity to help balance the budget. And so it was a very interesting and interactive activity where residents got to interact with each other, and they got to interact with city staff as we answered questions, and with council members that were there. And then there was some dialogue and debriefing from that. And I think this activity really helped the residents recognize the importance of Measure J, but also the realities of living within our means in the event that when Measure J revenue sunsets. But more importantly, I think it gave some really good insight into the priorities that the city council should be considering when budget modifications have to be made, and I'll address those a little bit later on. We also were able to we shared a lot of information, and I'll share just a few of the big data points that were shared to the public. We also were able to solicit some amazing feedback, which I'll share with the council, and then we're able to respond to some common questions, which I'll also address, and then I will conclude by talking about some next steps coming up. So in terms of the information shared, we provided what I called a Budget 101, where we really talked about what is the impact of Measure J. And as you recall, Measure J is a half-cent sales tax that was voted on by the residents of El Cajon, by the voters of El Cajon in 2008. It expires in 2028. It generates over $13 million, and it's starting to edge up to be about 15% of the city's budget. So it is not an insignificant amount of money that the measure generates to our general fund. Like the city of El Cajon, there are 8 other cities in the county of San Diego that have sales tax measures that range between 1 cent and half a cent. We're part of the tier that has the half a cent. We do know that the city of Encinitas has already put a sales tax measure on their November ballot, and we also know that Escondido, Lemon Grove, Santee, and San Diego are contemplating sales tax measures as well. We also shared information about how much money is generated from Measure J, but also where all the general fund money comes from after we had a conversation about what funds are. And as you can see, between regular sales tax, the Measure J sales tax, and property tax, 3/4 of the general fund is derives from those funding sources. Interestingly, if you were to look at our expenditures, 72% is dedicated or allocated to public safety, or specifically to fire and police. So going back to this slide, fire and police really rely on sales tax and property tax to exist. And as we talked about at a couple council meetings ago, a lot of the other departments also contribute to public safety. So it'd be inappropriate to say that only fire and police are our only two public safety agents or departments. We know that the IT department, over half of their activity is directly related to public safety. We know that over half of the HR activity is hiring public safety officials and dealing with public safety issues. So we know that in general government, also in community development, and even recreation services and public works, there is an aspect of public safety included in that. We also shared some data, and we were being very transparent where our money goes to. Most of our money goes towards personnel, with 22% going to services and supplies. But we also wanted to point out that 17% of the general fund revenue that is received goes to pay for pension debt, obligations that this city council has very little control over, debt that was incurred either because of investments by CalPERS or decisions that were made long before any of you were on the city council. But that's just a budget reality. And so when we're looking at how to bridge the gap or how to cut up to 15% out of the city's budget, remember, it's really cutting 15% out of the remainder of the slice, excluding the pension debt, because that has to be paid regardless of what revenue sources exist or don't exist. Staff also shared some information about how much the general fund pays for different staffing or different positions in the city. 54% of the general fund, or 54% of the positions funded through the general fund, are allocated to the police department, which is almost 200 positions, and you can see how it drops from there, going on down, with fire being the second highest. We also took that the percentage of Measure J income and applied that to the number of personnel. As you can see, you could make the argument that Measure J funds 55 positions throughout the city, 30 of them being in the police department, 9 of them being in the fire department. And as you recall, when we were looking at adding a new engine company, that 9 is a pretty magical number because that's the number it takes to run an engine company. So in the event that Measure J were to go away, City Council would either have to come up with another way to replace those 9 employees, or we would lose a fire engine company, as well as up to 30 police officers. We also had some, besides presenting information, we were able to solicit a lot of information back. And so here's just sort of some of the common questions that we heard. One is, why do some cities receive a greater percentage of property tax? And so we explained the history of Proposition 13 and when it went into place, and how that sort of established the slice of the pie that each city would receive of the property tax bill. And we shared that we are the 4th lowest receiver of property tax in the county. And if the city were to receive the share that Oceanside, Coronado, and Encinitas receive, we'd be receiving about $20 million more in property tax revenue, and having this Measure J discussion would be moot. We also there's a lot of questions about how much does this really cost? I mean, what is the impact of half a cent on the items that I purchase in the city? And we presented this graphic that shows that a reminder to the public that you pay 0 sales tax on groceries. And it makes up a minor percentage of the different types of household items that you purchase. We'll use buying a $1,000 laptop. It costs about $5.50 in sales tax, up to buying a new car is $124. But buying a 44-pound bag of food for $31, that's 15 cents. We were also asked, the city over time has built this amazing general reserve fund, but what happened? So why do you need to ask the voters for more money when you have so much money in the bank? We reminded the public that even though the council has been very prudent and has been able to build our rainy day fund, if spending were not curbed and when Measure J does sunset, the general fund reserve is depleted within about 3 years. And so just relying on your reserves is not a sustainable solution. And then lastly, there was a question. We've heard this question many times. We see it on social media. We also heard it during the town hall discussions, is why don't you just grow the economy and there's no longer a need to have a sales tax measure? So our finance director, he calculated that in order to grow the economy, we would have to attract businesses that would generate $1.3 billion in sales, and that would give us our $13.18 million in additional sales tax revenue. To give you a sense of what $1.3 billion in sales is, that's about 6 Costco's, 17 Home Depots, or 28 Targets, or 146 In-N-Out Burgers. So that just gives you a sense of what $1.3 billion really means. In terms of the feedback, I think these are the big salient points that staff took away. Council members, you were there, so you heard some of it, but you didn't get to hear everybody's comments because you weren't at every single one of these town halls. But there was really a good understanding that Measure J does expire. I mean, no one that attended said, "What is this Measure J that you're talking about?" And it was, for staff, it was encouraging that people really came to learn. They were there to understand the process better. There was also clearly a misunderstanding about revenues, expenditures, and different funds. We heard many times, well, how can you be spending all this general fund on a roundabout or on homeless services? And part of this town hall allowed us to explain that those are different funds that are explicit money that we receive in either grant money or from the state of California or from the federal government that can only be used on those things. And the reality is we use 0 general fund dollars on homeless services, but we only spend general fund dollars on homeless enforcement, cleaning up encampments, looking for illegal activity that's occurring in the community. It was obvious during the activities that making the cuts was very painful. In fact, some groups, there was 1 or 2 groups that were a little cavalier about it because I think they recognized it wasn't real. It was monopoly money. But there were some groups that were agonizing. There was one group, there was almost fistfights occurred because someone wanted to shut down a park that was next to their house, and they wanted to keep another park open that they refused to touch. And so it was interesting to watch the dialogue, and it was, I guess, rewarding to see how intent our residents were in as participating in the activity. We also... there was a real realization that in the event Measure J, or when Measure J does sunset, public safety spending will be impacted. There's no way around that. But it's also clear that that was one of the things that they would want to protect as long as they could, especially homeless cleanup activities from both the Public Works Department and the Police Department. We also asked about what are some of the things that would, as a taxpayer protection, that you would include in the measure. Everyone we talked to liked the idea of having a sunset, having a term of 20 years. The idea of having an independent oversight committee was mentioned, although I have to tell you there were several individuals that expressed a concern that about how much staff time it would take up. I think the residents recognize that we're staffed very leanly, and that adding another burden, would that just take away from accomplishing the mission? So there was some sensitivity toward that. And there was some interest in an advisory vote that would accompany the sales tax measure if this were to be put on the ballot, that would give some direction and guidance to the City Council of how that money should be spent. And then lastly, at the end of the day, there was consensus that the attendees of the town hall supported the same data that we derived from the polling data, which was they were relatively far majority supportive of a sales tax measure being put on the upcoming ballot. So with that, in terms of next steps, staff would recommend that we conduct a follow-up poll to the poll that occurred in April. We're working on some language of what we would include in that poll. We took a lot of the information from the town hall meetings and said, is there things that we need to understand better or measure better from that input that the residents gave us? Part of that would include focusing on the advisory measure a little bit more. We've also offered town halls to other groups, and in fact, we have a town hall scheduled. I won't call it a private town hall, but it's a town hall explicitly for an immigrant group in the city of El Cajon that we're meeting with on July 3rd. We'll be making ourselves available to meet with different service clubs and any organizations throughout the community and provide greater information and allow them to participate in the activity as well. And then I think staff, with the town halls completed, with the follow-up poll accomplished, and we are also producing a video that we'll be presenting to the public that can go out on social media and on our website. With all that information, I think we'll be ready to present a final recommendation, most likely at the August 6th City Council meeting, which will have to be a special meeting, and that will get us before the Register of Voters on the August 9th deadline. So with that, staff's here to answer any questions that you may have or go over any information that you think I didn't cover that you thought was interesting from the town halls as well.
All right, thank you, Graham. Appreciate it very much. Questions for Graham? No, I think we were all at the town halls and saw people. I'm really thankful that so many people came out and had great questions, and they worked on the activities. I want to commend staff for making it very understandable. With the ping pong balls, I think it was a great exercise in making it less abstract, because when you're talking about tens of millions of dollars, sometimes it's hard to understand what those numbers really mean. So I thought the whole thing was really well handled. So let me see if there's any speaker cards on this item.
No speaker cards, sir.
All right, I'll bring it back to City Council, and we can have more discussion, or somebody could proceed with a motion.
I move to receive the report.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
There are no commission reports on today's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I remind you that we have agenda item number 7 that we pulled from consent, if we can hear that at this time.
Thank you for reminding me.
And while staff comes up, Mr. Mayor, this is a continuation of the emergency for sewer system repair. This is a fluid event, and there's a lot of moving parts going on with this.
That was pretty funny.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't pre-plan that either. And this is currently an emergency repair, and that's one of the reasons why we're required to report every council meeting about the emergency, is because we need to be transparent about this. And so as part of that transparency, we wanted to share where we're at in the process, some of the recent hiccups that have occurred, and some of the potential ways that we can proceed at this point. And I'd recommend, before we get to what we're going to do, that this all fall under emergency repair, because it's pretty important that this be resolved sooner than later, rather than going through a long formal bidding process and have staff out there for the next 9 months. So with that, I'll turn time over to Dave Richards, our interim Public Works Director, to go over what the issue is and some of the concerns that have arisen.
Yep, and I'm joined today also by Yasmin, who's going to be talking about some of the engineering services work that will follow what I'm about to report on. So I've got some pictures. As Graham mentioned, this is a pretty fluid situation as far as things change from day to day. So it's not necessarily a pretty picture, but you'll get to see what kind of work we're up against. So on May 28th, a sewer pipe alarm was triggered, notifying our wastewater crews of a sewer pipe blockage. The 8-inch line runs north up Graves Avenue under Interstate 8. And Graham, I'll try not to hit you in the eye, but that's right here, this line right here that goes underneath the I-8. And you can see Graves on both sides. Graves used to go through. When they built the freeway, they built over the sewer line, and that's kind of what we've been maintaining for many years. So on May 29th, the city manager declared an emergency, authorizing staff to make emergency repairs because that line was completely blocked, which means all the sewage goes up. And so our staff quickly responded and prevented any sort of leak or damage to private property, but nonetheless, we needed to address this. So the city hired A1 Total Service Plumbing to assess the blockage and clear the line. The contractor found that a pipe liner installed in 2007 had failed. The top half of the liner folded or dropped and then folded in on itself, causing the pipe to clog. It has since been determined that the pipe liner previously installed did not cure correctly, leading to the pipe's failure. So the failed sewer line required city staff to divert sewage of these lines 24 hours a day. So kudos to our public works staff who have been working around the clock, trying to prevent this from turning into a really big thing. So they've successfully done that, and we've since brought on some contract work to relieve our staff so that they could get some rest and go about getting their jobs done well. So this is a picture of highlining at Ballantine. So this is where highlining is where they pump from one sewer manhole and they put it in another portion of our sewer system. And here again, you can see we're having to control traffic because it's in the middle of the traffic lane, and we're highlining on East Madison Avenue. So the contractor has been working to remove that failed liner and restore the line. So what you see here is the robot and a cutting tip that's on the tip of it, as well as a camera. And here you can see this is a portion of liner that they removed. It's slow, tedious work. It's coming out 3 feet at a time. And so it's taken a while. And there you can see that represents probably a good portion of the night removing sections of liner. So that was working, and we're probably about a week away from completing the project when last week the contractor found a failed section of pipe. And you can see that's the top of the pipe and a hole in the pipe. So during the inspection of the pipe, a piece of pipe fell, and this was within minutes of this last photo. So a piece of pipe fell and dirt filled the pipe, trapping the contractor's robot cutter. So we met with Caltrans on site. This is obviously a changing circumstance for us, where we were near completion of restoring that line under the freeway. And as of right now, Caltrans is leaning towards abandoning the pipe fix and going with an alternative, creating an alternative sewer line. So to talk about that portion, Yasmin's here.
And Ms. Ariano, before you said it, so just so you understand, the robot costs close to $400,000. So just abandoning the pipeline also includes likely abandoning the robot. So there's some costs incurred with that as well. Typically, if this was just going down a normal street, we'd be digging this up and just putting in new pipe. But because it runs under a freeway, we don't have that as a luxury, number one. And two, there's a concern about creating sinkholes within the freeway if dirt continues to run down into the void that we've created in the empty pipeline. So with that, Ms. Ariano is going to talk about maybe what are some longer-term solutions if we were to abandon this pipe.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Council members. Yasmin Arellano, Director of Engineering Services. The Engineering Services Department evaluated different alternatives for replacing this pipeline across Interstate 8. Factors such as cost, the feasibility, the time required for the implementation, potential disruption, and most important, the long-term maintenance cost. I'm saying most important because one of the alternatives was to the installation of a pipeline at a different location that would require the installation of a lift station. Based on the evaluation, the recommended solution is to construct the parallel pipeline utilizing directional boring across Interstate 8. Directional boring is also known as horizontal directional drilling, which is a method for pipeline installation without disrupting the surface. Staff has already met with Caltrans, and we have emergency authorization to proceed with the work. And we're coordinating the construction and coordinating with operations. And we're here to answer any questions regarding the installation of the new pipeline that council may have.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's a lot of questions. Phil, you want to start?
Yeah, just a couple off the top of my head. Did I hear that Caltrans has authority to force us to abandon that pipeline?
They're not. Okay, so one of the alternatives that was considered was to repair the pipeline. Unfortunately, we're not able to repair this pipeline in the condition that it is, and we need the most important thing is to get it back into operation so that we can eliminate the 24-hour bypass situation that we have. So the most time efficient and cost effective way is to install a parallel pipeline utilizing directional boring. What they did not allow was the open trench across the freeway.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
But they also have concern. So now we have an abandoned pipe.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we need to fill it
with an opening?
Do we need to fill it?
And dirt can fall in, and that's how sinkholes form. So they have some concerns. So they've been a good partner. They're watching what's going on. They're working closely with staff, and they have their own staff monitoring the freeway.
Okay.
In the event a sinkhole does form, they want to address that quickly. So
are we planning on waiting to fill that?
No. So, well, go.
Okay.
I wanted to clarify, too, about the pipe repair. So it's completely possible to repair the pipe, but we'd have to get the dirt out. And so by removing more dirt, we could create a bigger void.
Yep.
So our initial plan was to do structural pipe repairs, but that's not always going to be the best option for Caltrans or us, I suppose.
Right.
So yes, so to answer your question, Caltrans has been a great partner. So they allowed us to proceed. So the first order of work will be the installation of the parallel pipeline, and then the last item of work is going to be the proper abandonment of that pipeline, of the existing one that is structurally not functional.
Okay. And are we liable for the plumbing company's robot?
Yeah, it's like when we called them in for emergency work, we pay for the materials that they go through, including the materials that could be damaged in the process. So we paid for, several cutting heads as part of the process. It's just the cost of doing this kind of work, unfortunately.
Okay. It seems like they should be liable for their own robot. Or
I think these are we'll be discussing liability.
My recollection is that they would not do the work unless we had a condition in there that we would be responsible for their equipment because of this very incident might happen.
Because of the nature of the work.
And we had to act with emergency powers and had to accept the risk that this might have happened, and unfortunately it did.
Okay, that makes sense if it's in the contract. Well, either way, outstanding job to the Public Works Department and whoever had the foresight of putting alarms in our sewer system to notify us when there's a backup. I mean, the foresight there is just exemplary and outstanding to avoid a catastrophe of having a leak of raw sewage, not contained, maybe going into houses or somewhere else. So obviously, we have to get this fixed as quickly as possible. And if we have to spend money to do it, let's do it. That's why we have reserves for emergencies like this. So, yeah.
More questions, Steve?
So presumably the cost of of our funds would come from the wastewater fund? And is that something that we have adequate reserve for in that fund?
Yeah, that's correct. This is all the expenses will be derived in the wastewater funds.
Okay, so we'll touch the general fund.
One more thing that I may add is that our budget includes, in our rate study, included 60 days of reserves on the enterprise fund for emergencies like this. And 60 days is equivalent to $4 million, a little bit over $4 million.
So we're going to come up close to 60 days.
No. 60 days, I apologize, of operational expenditures, which is equivalent to a little bit over $4 million.
We'll be way under that, yes.
Okay. Any of this reimbursable by anybody? Insurance for the cost of an abandoned...
I mean, I've asked our insurance company whether our property insurance or liability coverage extends to this specific instance. If it was within a couple feet of our buildings, maybe, but no, not so much here, unfortunately. It's just a cost of doing business.
And I think the work happened so long ago that any warranty on the work would not be there. Now, if we can find that there is a cause, I mean, we'll as part of this process, if there's a cause, if something occurred to cause this failure that was someone else's liable, we will seek that opportunity. But right now, probably not ready to talk about that.
Is the failure at the Blue Cross area on the map? Is that where the failure occurred?
That's a specific, the hole in the top of the pipe where the dirt's piling in. That's where that is. The failure of the liner itself was from the south. It was about 60 feet. So it wasn't far in, but as we began to remove liner, reopen the pipe, and reestablish service, failures elsewhere in the pipe started to happen.
Where I'm going with this is we used to have a sewer system with a through street called Graves, and then somebody took out that access for us, including any manhole covers. And they piled a bunch of dirt on top of that so they could make a freeway. They changed our condition. Is there any change that they would have caused that is results of this kind of thing?
It's being contemplated and explored.
Okay. That's good to know that and to follow up on that. Where's the parallel? Would it just jog left and then go straight down and then jog back?
Yeah, the parallel will be located to the east. So it would be like right here, basically. So yes, it would jog. We would install a manhole to the east of the existing pipeline, about probably 3 to 4 feet, and then we'll run it.
Okay, 3 to 4 feet parallel the existing line.
Right.
Great, thank you.
And I guess my concern at this point would be making this bad situation worse and there being a sinkhole created on I-8. Are we doing everything to make sure that that's not happening? I mean, because then we would be liable, wouldn't we, for any repairs to the 8 freeway?
Yeah, we'd have liability there. So we're that's why when Caltrans said, please stop digging, we didn't push back.
Yeah.
We said, okay, got it. And we're exploring that. We have our own engineering team staff, but we have also hired an engineering expert to help us in this area.
Let's fill the old one, bury that robot, pay for it, and just to avoid the sinkhole. I mean, whatever the experts say, let's do it quickly because we want to avoid any more liability.
More questions? When did we install the liner?
It was pre-freeway, and I think the freeway was in
the liner. That was 2007.
Oh, the liner.
Yeah. So did we cause the failure, or did a company? Did we contract out with a company that was in charge of? I'm assuming that we had some kind of guarantee. Hey, this is not going to fail for 100 years. I remember us talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, generally the warranted work or the guaranteed product is for a year, and this specific company, to my understanding, is out of business. Oh,
the only reason I mention it is maybe it was the Johnson sewer project. I remember that there was talk about how this liner was not going to fail for a long, long time. Is that the same kind of product?
I don't know if I can speak to that, Jasmine.
They have different products for liners. And Johnson, we built a parallel pipe. Perhaps it could have been a pipeline rehabilitation project that we had that we do. Every year or every other year we do pipeline lining rehabilitation projects. And as mentioned, so different products, different thicknesses, different suppliers.
Okay. In this case, though, there's no recouping costs on this. This is all us.
Well, I mean, right now we're just trying to fix the problem first. Yeah. But I think we always have to be exploring that. That will be, again, contemplated and try to figure out a way to recoup costs.
Any kind of an estimate of how much this is going to cost the city total project?
I mean, I can tell you that the pipe restoration at the moment sits about $500,000, and then going north with the cost of the robot. And Yasmin's options, I think she's working up her price as we speak.
As we speak, we're thinking probably between $1.5 and $2 million for the installation of the parallel pipeline.
Okay. Hey, any other questions? Yes, Phil.
Just one comment. Do we have a map of where this product was installed in other pipes along the city, and are we probing to check if there's any other failures ahead of time? We can start ripping it out, or
yeah, I mean, strategically, the ops team is already talking about it, where we're going to go back in after we get this
done, right.
Check the liner that was installed around the same time by the same company,
yeah,
and see if there's other problems. And hopefully there's not, because this one's proven to be a very time-consuming and expensive problem. Although this is under the freeway, so it's like worst-case scenario.
Right. Yeah, it couldn't have failed at a worse spot. So
right.
Thank you. Great work.
We have been communicating with the neighborhood, especially the neighborhood south of the freeway along Graves, where that's being impacted with parking and other things. We are preparing a door hanger that'll go out and give folks an estimated time, so everyone is aware of what's happening.
All right. There are still no
speaker cards.
No speaker cards on this item. Yeah. Okay. I think we're good. Thank you very much. Thanks for the report and good work. All right. Looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Item 20 is my activities report, and it is as reported. I'm now at the activities reports for council members. Councilmember Goebel.
As reported, with a compliment to the city clerk's office, to the public records search feature on the website is much improved. Now, instead of having to decipher what all the fields are, you can just put in your keywords that you want to find on that thing. So to the IT department, to the city clerk's office and the city managers, that is a great improvement to public access to historical records. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goebel. Councilmember Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember Mitchell.
As reported.
Deputy Mayor Phil Ortiz.
As reported, with one addition and one comment, I did have a Measure J meeting today to add to the record. And I want to give a big thank you to our community development department and city manager Graham Mitchell and Vince DiMaggio. We had a business roundtable discussion with developers in the city of El Cajon that have developed land within the city of El Cajon, and we were getting feedback from these developers as to what's the city doing well, what's something the city could improve on, what's something that you've experienced in other cities that you'd like El Cajon to do. It lasted about an hour. It was an outstanding discussion. Our staff was attentive in listening to all of our contractors and developers' concerns and input, and very, very productive. And I want to thank Tony Shute and his staff for being attentive and responsive. A lot of the feedback was great. That our contractors love working with the city, and they're easy to work with, and they go the extra mile, and they had a couple of little things that might help them in the future. Of course, development is good for the city, all these empty lots that we have, bringing in housing, market rate housing. And what we wanted to communicate to these developers is that we know that as a city, we're competing with other cities to bring their projects here. And so we want to be as competitive as possible and stand out from those other cities, so they'll bring their development money here to the city. And this is all part of that process. So again, thank you to Tony, Graham, Vince, and all staff for being there. Even our fire representatives were there as well.
So are we going to get an update on exactly what happened at some point in this?
I sent out a memo earlier today. You probably haven't seen your inbox. So that has a recap.
Okay.
And then as part of, and we committed in the goals to do this semi-annually, but I think there's some value in doing it quarterly and maybe having a little different focus. Maybe we'll focus on realtors next time. And so, but we'll invite the same group of people over and over. So
sounds good. Okay, there are no joint council member reports, no general information items, no first or second reading of ordinances, and no closed sessions on today's agenda. Before I adjourn, do we want to swear in our new member, or do you want to do that after the meeting?
We already did, sir. We no longer do it during the meeting. We usually attend their meetings, but we already did his oath of office.
Well, again, congratulations. Thank you. And thanks for serving. Okay, this brings us to adjournment. The adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 25th day of June 2024, is adjourned till Tuesday, July 9th, 2024 at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you very much and have a great couple weeks.